People are saying that Jack Hanma is going to lose because the author is racist, connecting this claim and proving it as there's a panel of Yujiro claiming that Jack is less pure compared to Baki Hanma, seemingly referring to him as a beast rather than a Hanma like himself. But a better translation and the context is Tokigawa saying that after Retsu, Katsumi and Jack lost against Pickle, Baki is up next, where the old man claims that the fighting power of those three is on par with Baki. This is during a conversation with the ogre, where he says, Baki's got one thing those three do not, it's undeniable. Baki's definitely got my blood in him, he's clearly of the Hanma lineage. Naturally resulting in confusion from Tokigawa, saying, but Jack's got yours, where Yujiro responds, it runs thin in him. Seeing the result, it's clear to me, it runs thin in him. Him being defeated and destroyed by Pickle has led Yujiro to believe, yeah, of course, his blood runs thin in him, that's why he would use. Where Tokigawa concludes their conversation with this. So you're saying if he doesn't win, your blood runs thin in him? Good grief, your pride truly dumbfounds me. Speaking of which, ogre, don't you want to fight him? Which results in this moment and the ogre taking his leave, confirming that he will fight the winner of the battle between Baki and Pickle, which later connects to a moment that happens between the ogre and Biscuit Oliver, but I'll break that down later in today's video. This is the basis for why people believe the author is racist, in the sense that Jack of course is going to lose against someone like Hanayama, but let's have a look at the comments. So this is in regards to the current Jack and Hanayama fight, where Hanayama is beating up Jack. We have various moments of Jack screaming in pain, people throughout the fandom saying Jack is nerfed, people believing Hanayama is destroying Jack, he's going to win, stuff like that, and how it doesn't make sense, etc. So this guy got 22 likes, so one of the most liked comments on the recent video, but plenty of replies. So he says, think about it, this is the same author who wrote Jack was less pure compared to Baki in the manga, because Jack had a white mother and Baki had an Asian mother. Of course he's going to favor the pure Hanayama over the not pure Jack. You can read pure to mean that Baki is 100% Japanese and Jack obviously is not. It was a bit more harsh at first the way he said it, but you get what he's saying. What's the counter argument? If Jack and Baki trained in martial arts since they were kids and Jack's mother was militarily trained, wouldn't that make Baki less pure, considering Baki's mother was just a regular civilian? The pure comment is about race. I 100% expect Jack to lose to Hanayama, the author's favourite character, because non-fully Japanese fighters routinely job to fully Japanese fighters in Baki. Also recently, Jack has got wins over minor characters and Pickle, which was Jack's biggest noteworthy win in years over a major character in the series. Pickle just happens to be a character who isn't 100% Japanese. These coincidences keep racking up somehow. My initial response here was that was never said. This was because his original comment before the edit was mostly talking about the Jack having a white mother. When Yujiro said the unpure claim about Jack, he didn't mention his mother being white or anything like that. That wasn't part of it at all. That's the reason for my initial response. But he says he will edit it, which what he did, make it more formal. But my main reply that pretty much explained the situation was this. Context matters. Jack just lost against Pickle twice. That's when the unpure comment was made. And Yujiro was talking with Tokigawa about what will happen when Baki fights him. This is right before Baki clashes with Pickle at the end of the arc. Claiming that he will fight the winner and that Baki has more of a chance, quoting that Jack is a beast and less pure in a sense. With the outcome of Baki vs Pickle being controversial to many people, technically Baki was the stronger one when using techniques. Anyone who's read or watched the fight clearly saw Baki dominating Pickle even when he transformed, where Baki only lost when he tried facing Pickle in raw strength and then pretty much got destroyed. So with that said, you could say Yujiro was wrong in like saying Baki was the victor, and that's pretty much the whole reason we got the Baki and Oliver clash. Oliver was of the view that Pickle was the winner based on the outcome, while Yujiro was of the view that Baki was the winner because he's the stronger one. And since Baki works in a way of fighting determines who's right, Yujiro beat up Oliver in the sense that Yujiro's mindset is right, he's correct, therefore Baki technically won against Pickle from Yujiro's view, therefore Yujiro will fight Baki, and that led into the build up of the father-son fight. On top of that, as many of you know, recently in Baki Rahen, we have Yujiro outright say to Jack in the street that he has a rare purity, talking about his evolution, the Gaodao, etc., which pretty much, you could say, disregards the previous unpure statement. He doesn't call him the unpure beast anymore, he says directly to Jack that he has a rare purity. You would imagine that means something. And then his response to me after that, context, like question marking, like what do you mean context? How does the beast is less pure make sense when Jack has been training in martial arts since he was a child and Jack's mother was a soldier? What is less pure other than his racial background in the eyes of the author? So to address his training point, it's important to note we've seen like a young Baki be trained by Yujiro and learn stuff when Yujiro was taking out those various bats in flashback scenes where Baki first learnt about the jab. That's all from Yujiro when Baki was very young. And then on top of that, Baki's mother was pretty much pushed by Yujiro to invest everything into Baki's training when he was young before he had given up on that route. While for Jack, his first time meeting Yujiro was when he was already an adult and in the maximum tournament, from our knowledge. So I would say that's a pretty big difference, being trained by the strongest creature to a degree and learning stuff from him since you were a child, to being this wild beast that's overtraining since he was a child, having the ultimate goal of being the strongest creature alive, destroying his body, and not meeting the main villain to you until you're already an adult. With of course Jack being a few years older than Baki, as a reminder. So my initial response was, I'd rather look at what's provided in the story than make everything just, oh, the author is racist. The same thing was mentioned non-stop about Oliver, and then he beat up Sukune in the rematch. And with the mention of Sukune, he is indeed a full Japanese character, the representation of sumo, one of the key Japanese martial arts that represents Japan. And funny enough, in his initial comment, he just didn't say anything about Sukune. Jack's big return fight was him beating up Sukune and being the first one to truly defeat him. Like, yes, we had the Baki seeing him kinda drop Sukune, we had Yujiro kinda humble them, but those two fights weren't all-out fights, they were quick exchanges, while Jack defeating Sukune in that arc was the big absolute defeat in every regard. So that kinda just destroys his original point to begin with, and you can even say back during the Maximum Tournament, since Jack's introduction, he's been regarded as like a top tier. He literally defeated Goki within the Maximum Tournament, again another full Japanese fighter who was able to defeat people like Doppo Orochi during that same tournament, another full Japanese fighter. So the race stuff in regards to that doesn't really make too much sense. I know a lot of people will mention the stuff about like the American aspect getting shit on throughout Baki, such as the presidents occasionally, but again, that doesn't connect to Jack. His mother is Canadian, so is this question marks once again? So he says, you know, one guy beating another guy in a fighting manga is not the same at all. The pure comment is illogical at best from Yudro. So I don't know why he mentions that when the whole purpose of his original post is to say that Jack is going to lose to Hanayama because of the pure statement. Like, this doesn't make sense. This dude says, I think it's pretty clear what he means by purity. It was a theme in Baki from the very beginning and has never been about ethnicity. Go back to the very first fight in the series where it's shown that Baki beats Pseudo because a grappling is a purer form of fighting than sport karate as Pseudo uses. This is referenced multiple times throughout the story, like with Ali Jr. It's about personal fighting philosophy, being that Baki beats Pseudo because he uses his natural abilities while Pseudo enhances himself through artificial means. How that relates to Jack is pretty obvious, particularly when you consider the context of the Yudro statement. Jack's fight against Pickle wasn't really a representation of like martial arts or technique. Like, yes, he's throwing like strikes and stuff, but compare that to Baki and his techniques against Pickle. It was a very stark difference, and that directly connects to Yudro's recent statement about Jack now having a rare purity. He's not fighting like a wild beast. Yes, he's biting, but there's tactics and skill behind the biting now. This guy's yapping about how it's Itagaki's fault for pretty much having Jack lose against Kure Rahen in the crossover, even though Sandro, the Kangen author, was the one credited and mentioned for the writing of that. So it's pretty much irrelevant, and it's a crossover. Of course, one of the Baki characters would have to lose. And I will also say, the Baki author could be racist, but based on the story itself, it doesn't seem like the race of Jack is a factor that affects his performance in any regard.